These days, it feels like you can't really escape Nvidia, can you? I mean, everything tech-related seems to touch them somehow.
It's true. And Jensen Huang, he's taken this company from, well, relatively humble beginnings right to the absolute forefront, leading the AI revolution.
Yeah, and those microchips they make, so sought after. You hear stories about them selling for way, way above retail. It's kind of wild.
It really is a remarkable story. And to really get under the hood, we're doing a deep dive today into Stephen Witt's book, The Thinking Machine, Jensen Huang, Nvidia, and the world's most coveted microchip.
Exactly. We got some amazing access, didn't he? Like 6 interviews with Jensen Huang himself.
And talk to over 200 other people, too. It's incredibly well researched.
So our mission today is basically to pull out the key stuff, the really important insights about Jensen, NVIDIA's whole journey, and, their massive role in AI right now.
Think of it as your shortcut to understanding this whole huge transformative story.
And Witt uncovered some pretty surprising things, some real human elements, too.
Yeah, Witt's goal, it seems, was to tell the kind of untold story of Jensen, not just the CEO stuff.
Right, like his background, how he thinks, his methods.
His personal life, family, friends, the whole picture.
Even dug up stuff Jensen seemed surprised he knew, like that car crash when he was just 21.
Yeah, that anecdote really stood out. And what's really fascinating is Witt's take on Huang's decision-making process.
How so?
Well, for business, he apparently breaks everything down to first principles. Super analytical.
Okay, makes sense.
But when it comes to family, that logic kind of shifts. Witt notes he doesn't have that same massive ego you sometimes see with other Silicon Valley billionaires he's spoken to.
Interesting. And Witt connects that back to his background.
Absolutely. His Taiwanese immigrant roots, strong family values, Witt argues they're fundamental to who he is.
And there's that story about his first friend in the U.S., Ben Bades.
Oh, yeah, that really paints a picture. Huang arrives, he's 10, gets bullied at this boarding school in rural Kentucky. A tough start.
Yeah.
But even then, Bades saw this resilience, this, innate leadership in him. So decades later, when Huang hits it big, Bades wasn't surprised at all.
Wow. So what does Witt see as the keys to his success then?
Well, okay, several things. Obviously, high IQ is part of it. That seems clear.
Sure.
And then there's this absolutely relentless work ethic, like pushing himself almost to the breaking point.
We hear that a lot about successful founders.
True. But Witt emphasizes something else too, courage. Real courage, the willingness to take massive risks, stare down failure.
You can really see that with the whole supercomputing platform struggle, right? A decade-long slog.
A whole decade.
Right.
It wasn't working, and he had activist investors breathing down his neck trying to oust him.
But he just fought for his vision.
He did. And it wasn't just high-level vision stuff either. Witt talks about how hands-on he is.
Like spending time with junior folks.
Yeah, junior employees, even really small customers.
Yeah.
Apparently, he picked that up partly from Morris Chang at TSMC.
Ah, the TSMC connection? That's huge for NVIDIA.
Crucial, because early on, Nvidia was apparently close to bankruptcy, got turned down by corporate salespeople.
Wow.
But Chang saw something, took them on as a customer. Huang never forgot that the importance of nurturing even the little guys. He pays it forward.
That's a great insight. Now, Witt also touches on Huang's leadership style, which sounds intense.
There are definitely stories of him being a tough boss, pushing people really hard, demanding.
Oh, there's another side, too.
Exactly. Witt found these surprising stories of, real tenderness and gentleness. It's a contrast.
Like the Tim Little story, the guy who resigned.
Yeah, that one's powerful. Little quit because the environment was just too much. But Huang didn't just accept it.
What did he do?
He met with him personally, made this impassioned plea for him to stay, apparently even talked about his own sacrifices, missing time with his family because of the job.
That's unexpected. It humanizes him quite a bit.
It really does. And then you hear about him at home, and Witt says he's almost goofy with his family.
Goofy. Jensen Huang.
Apparently. There's this story of him cooking on a teppanyaki grill at home, trying to flip shrimp into his chef's hat and missing.
Okay, that's definitely a different image.
Right. And then there's the baseball pitch story. He had to throw the ceremonial first pitch for a Taiwanese team.
How'd that go?
Terribly at first. His throw was awful. But he got completely obsessed, practiced nonstop with his wife until he absolutely nailed it.
That sounds like the perfectionist streak coming through again.
Totally. It shows that same intensity, just in a different context.
So the book talks about NVIDIA inventing the future. That feels pretty accurate given AI.
Yeah, and Witt explores Huang's view on all the AI doomsday talk.
He's not buying it.
Not at all. He strongly disagrees. He's focused squarely on the upside, the potential for scientific breakthroughs, automating labor,
Gotcha.
robotics.
Positive stuff.
Right. But Witt actually notes there's been a bit of a shift in Silicon Valley lately, away from the sort of doomer discourse and more towards Huang's optimistic view.
Although Witt himself seems a bit more cautious now.
Yeah, his own perspective seems to have evolved. He started as more of a tech optimist, but now he writes that he thinks AI might be, categorically different, something with really unknown long-term consequences.
That's a sobering thought. Let's rewind a bit, though, back to the very beginning. That Denny's Diner story.
Classic Silicon Valley legend, isn't it? East San Jose, $600 cash.
And the bullet holes.
I know. Bullet holes in the Denny's window, so they had to go sign the incorporation papers in a co-founder's condo instead. You couldn't write it better.
It's amazing. And for, what, the first 20 years, they were basically just a video game hardware company?
Pretty much exclusively, which really begs the question.
Why didn't Intel or AMD see the AI thing coming? They were the chip giants.
That's a huge part of the story Witt unpacks. Because Huang's strategy was, well, unconventional doesn't even cover it.
What did he do?
He started marketing these GPUs, these graphics chips, designed for video games, to academic researchers, scientists. And then he poured billions into R&D, specifically for them. Billions. For a market, academic computing, that was tiny. He called it the $0 billion market.
A $0 billion market? That sounds insane from a business perspective.
That's exactly what Intel and AMD apparently thought.
Huh.
They saw NVIDIA as crazy, foolish, wasting resources.
So Huang was taking a massive gamble.
Huge. And it ticked off shareholders for years. NVIDIA had this reputation as sort of an eccentric second-tier player.
But then AI exploded.
And suddenly, those GPUs were exactly what was needed for training these huge neural networks. It paid off spectacularly. Surprised everyone, Huang included to some extent, but definitely Intel and AMD.
And Witt links this to the innovator's dilemma, right?
Yes, directly. He mentions Clayton Christensen's book, says Huang was obsessed with it, even made his execs read it.
Can you remind us what that dilemma is, basically?
Sure. It's the idea that successful, established companies often fail because they focus too much on their current, profitable customers and products.
And they miss the next big thing.
Exactly. They overlook disruptive technologies or new markets because initially they look small or unprofitable compared to their main business. Witt uses the Honda motorcycle analogy.
Right, how Honda started with small, cheap bikes that the big guys ignored and then scaled up.
Precisely. NVIDIA, by targeting that $0 billion market, was playing the Honda role.
Now, Witt compares Huang to other tech figures. He says he's not like William Shockley.
Thank goodness. Shockley was known for being pretty offensive. Huang isn't that.
But he does have rough edges.
Yeah, Witt acknowledges that. He can be a very tough boss. Apparently, he will yell at employees sometimes.
And that corporate struggle session thing sounds intense.
It does. Employees critiquing their own work in front of everyone, and then Huang gives this, withering analysis. Witt sees similarities to Jobs or Bezos in that intensity.
It's a demanding culture.
Very. But there are other, maybe more unusual aspects, too, like requiring every single employee to email him their top 5 tasks for the week.
Every employee. How many people report to him?
Over 60 direct reports, apparently. It's his way of staying plugged in, fighting bureaucracy. Very flat structure.
That's a lot. Okay, what about luck? How much of NVIDIA's success was just being in the right place when AI took off?
Witt addresses that. Huang's response is basically, look, we spent a decade and billions of dollars deliberately searching for some killer app for scientific computing.
So it wasn't just luck, they were building the capability.
Right. AI happened to be the app, but they were actively hunting for something big, even if they didn't initially target AI specifically. There's that anecdote about Jeffrey Hinton.
The AI pioneer.
Yeah, apparently Hinton had trouble even getting NVIDIA's attention at first when he wanted to use their GPUs for his research.
Shows how focused they were, maybe. But who does Huang look up to? His heroes.
His main tech and business hero, according to Witt, is Morris Chang of TSMC.
Back to Chang. It really comes down to that lesson about customers.
Yeah, that experience when TSMC initially kind of brushed NVIDIA off, but then Chang stepped in personally. Huang learned firsthand. Take care of everyone, even the small players, because you never know.
And he wrote Chang a personal letter.
He did. And that led to this incredibly strong partnership. Huang then applied that lesson himself, investing heavily in his own customers' tools and growth.
The whole Taiwan connection seems important, too. Jensen being born there, moving to the U.S.
Right. He lived there till he was 10. Witt raises the question, would Nvidia's partnership with TSMC, a Taiwanese company, have been quite so strong without Huang's heritage?
Hard to say for sure, I guess.
Probably. But Witt suggests it likely helps create a blend within Nvidia, that serious, hardworking Taiwanese ethic mixed with a more maverick American sensibility.
How does Witt compare him to, say, the Google guys, Page and Brin?
Similarities, obviously Stanford connections, brilliant computer scientist,
Hmm.
but Witt sees Huang as less purely academic, more of a corporate guy maybe,
Hmm.
a worker in the trenches.
Interesting. And VCs initially bet on him personally.
Yeah, apparently the early business plan wasn't amazing. Their first product actually flopped, nearly bankrupted them. The bet was really on Jensen himself.
Led to that internal company saying,
We are always 30 days from going out of business. Kept them hungry, I suppose.
so looking forward, Witt brings up the John Chambers-Cisco comparison. Is there a risk NVIDIA becomes less central someday?
It's a possibility, sure. But Huang's ambition seems much grander than just being a network gear provider like Cisco became.
He wants to be more like Edison.
That's the idea Witt puts forward. Positioning NVIDIA as the absolute core infrastructure for AI, the factories in the 21st century, he's got tons of initiatives beyond just AI chips, too.
And Witt thinks he's already surpassed Chambers in terms of innovation.
Yeah, Witt argues Huang has already fundamentally reshaped computing in a way Chambers didn't.
What are the big threats then? Competition.
Definitely. You've got Google with their TPUs, though Witt notes they've had somewhat limited success so far. Microsoft is trying hardware but struggling. Apple has silicon shops, but they're mostly consumer-focused.
What about China?
That's a big one, Witt emphasizes. The U.S. export bans are essentially forcing China to develop its own domestic industry, which could become a major competitor down the line.
And the ultimate threat.
Witt suggests it might just be another Jensen, some hungry startup nobody sees coming, ready to disrupt the giant.
The classic innovator's dilemma again.
Exactly. And Witt points out that the end of Moore's law back in the mid-2000s was actually a key driver for Nvidia. It pushed them to invest heavily in parallel computing when others weren't. They became a post-Moore's law company early on.
What about quantum computing? Is that a threat?
Not really, according to Witt. Not yet, anyway. The hardware challenges are still immense. It's not an immediate concern for NVIDIA's core business.
And geopolitics,
Yeah,
tariffs, reshoring manufacturing, Taiwan itself.
all huge factors. Trump's tariffs hit them, and TSMC. Now there's this push to build fabs in the U.S., like in Arizona. Long-term, automation might change labor cost calculations too. But the risk around Taiwan and China looms large over everything.
It connects back to Witt's earlier book, How Music Got Free. Is this story maybe how intelligence got free?
It's a provocative thought. And it leads right into the risks, doesn't it? Unfettered AI. You hear concerns from people like Jeffrey Hinton, Elon Musk, worries about control, even survival instincts emerging in AI.
But Huang just isn't on that page at all.
Not even close. He fundamentally disagrees. Based on his engineering understanding, he doesn't see it as a real risk. He sees AI as a tool, a force for progress, and dismisses the doomer stuff.
Witt describes a pretty intense final interview about this.
Yeah, apparently Huang got quite animated, exploded even when Witt kept pressing on the risks. Said something like, I'm a serious person. I'm a serious engineer. This is not Star Trek.
Wow, really highlights the difference in perspective, engineering versus sci-fi vision.
Exactly. Huang's grounded in the engineering. Musk is maybe thinking more about the far-out possibilities or dangers.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive into Witt's The Thinking Machine really paints a picture of Jensen Huang as this unique blend, doesn't it? Technical genius, incredible drive, but also this complex, sometimes tough, sometimes tender leadership style.
Absolutely. And NVIDIA's journey is just pivotal. They're undeniably dominant in AI hardware right now.
Yeah.
It's central to everything happening.
Hopefully you listening feel like you've got a much better handle now on this huge force shaping our future.
It's a company and a leader you really need to understand these days.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Given Jensen Huang's intense engineering focus, his dismissal of those existential AI worries, what blind spots might that create? As we race ahead adopting this technology, are we potentially overlooking risks because the people building it are so focused on the immediate engineering challenges?
It's definitely worth considering the different perspectives. And for a much, much deeper dive, we absolutely recommend picking up Stephen Witt's book, The Thinking Machine.